XYZ, give us some more money to do better. I was there. I said those same things in my earlier life before I had my little epiphany on the road to Damascus. And the point is that's not going to happen. And we have to think of new business models, new way of reallocating our resources, figuring out, as you're going to do here, what are our core mission pieces, and how are we going to then invest in that with the money we do have. Certainly there will be some opportunities through the American Graduation Initiative and others, but that's not going to be there forever. So even if you accept that money, you have to figure out how you use that. Or you accept Lumina money or whoever's money you accept on a temporary basis. How do you integrate that into something that becomes sustainable in the long haul? And that productivity is, we've got, it's about capacity really. We have to increase capacity to serve more students. I'm not going to go into that, I'm going to move on. So you are here, all the wonderful people in this room, the employers in the room, the Harper College people in the room, other people from other sectors in the room. Partnerships. We do fund work. I just came from Arizona, where we funded an initiative in Arizona, southern Arizona, with the University of Arizona, Pima Community College, a whole bunch of institutions, to band together with employers, advocates for immigrant groups, others in that area, to do a careful analysis of what that area needs and then figure out how to work together. Because part of this is everybody's got to have skin in the game. When we talk about resources, I've done a lot of work in this area over the years, and I've visited institutions where when they start talking about partnering, people show up from the community and what they figure, they think it's a giveaway program from the institution. You know, they're going to give us stuff. That's not what it's about. Everybody's, I think that's clearly the perception in here. Everybody's got to have skin in the game, and that's the way we work together. Higher education, regional development students to make this all happen. We're moving away. This isn't, of course, very few community colleges look like this, but some of them, honestly, some of the community colleges I've worked with are a little isolated. They're a little ivory tower, even some of the community colleges. But, you know, we're looking to a new model. So we're talking about 21st century colleges, and I know you had some discussion about this in previous pieces, that move away from siloed teaching and service and other things to a learning, innovation, engagement kind of cycle, where that's constantly moving, where we're looking at how we connect as higher education with our partners, our stockholders perhaps, rather than our stakeholders, to really think about innovative economy, social inclusion, livable communities, collaborative governance. These are all the things that make for a vibrant living community. Some of you may have looked at some of the work by Richard Florida, the economist. I think his work on the creative class, and he talks about a spiky world where really Richard Friedman is not wrong. It is a flat world, but because it's flat, it's easy to kind of connect, and what's happening is creative class people who drive wealth creation are clustering, and they're clustering places where the kind of partnerships you're trying to create here and the kind of community, not just education attainment, but green and diverse and celebrating, that's where people are going, and that's where the future lies. If you want to be a spike in the new world and not a depression in the land. There's a lot of things that have to happen for you to make this work. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of literature out there on how this works. You've got to, but it's great when you're doing this work. It really is, as I said, it's helpful when the politically advantageous and the morally correct thing come together. Because when I've seen institutions do this kind of work with their communities, with their employers, and make a difference in the economy, in the quality of community life, folks who fund us, like legislators, they love that stuff. They thought we were doing that all along, but nevertheless, they love that stuff. But you know, thinking of yourself as a steward of place, that you are here trying to make this a different kind of place with a different quality of life together. And avoiding the random acts of excellence trap. Whenever I go to institutions, when we talk about this kind of engagement and working with employers and working with community organizations, you always hear, we do that. We do that. Well, what they do is they have this department that does that and this that does that. It's not a coherent, as you're trying to create here, strategic model. These are all the kinds of partners, and many of them are in the room here today, that you need to bring to the table and think about everybody's role in making change happen to increase opportunity for the population of your community. Convene. You're working with Achieving the Dream. It really becomes important, I think, as you have these conversations, to have data-driven decision-making. I can't tell you how many conversations I've been in where everybody's got their little pet thing, and they want to do their pet thing. The best way, and it becomes kind of a political thing about who's who's got, bigger political clout, and that's whose pet thing gets done. One way to get out of that is to really mercilessly look at your data and have what we call in Achieving the Dream, those courageous conversations around what really needs to get done. Clarify expectations for all the partners. Certainly from a higher ed, from folks in the room, from Harper Community College, avoid the expert syndrome. I mean, I know some of you may have been involved in an area for a long time and studied it and taught about it, but if you go out in the community with a group that's been working with poverty for the last 20 years on the streets, and you start walking in there with the attitude that, hi, I'm from Harper Community College, and I'd like to share with you what you need to do to be more effective. That ain't going to play. Okay? It's got to be a partnership where we're mutually learning from one another. So and again, there has to be internal realignments, and I know you're working on that. If you're going to do this kind of work, you need to reward it. Institution after institution that I visit, faculty who are doing this kind of work say, yeah, I do that. I love that. That's my love. But I do it at the expense of, or sometimes certainly not in any contribution to, my actual professional rewards and career in the institution. And develop meaningful goals and metrics for who's going to do what for all the partners. What's the employer community going to do? What is everybody committing to here as you move forward with this strategic plan? Oh, I'm running out of time, so let me conclude. I guess, again, I said it was a time of crisis and opportunity, and I want to emphasize the opportunity point. If not now, when? We can't afford to have another Nation at Risk report. It was done in the 70s, and then decades later look back and say, well, we could dust that report off and reprint it and put some new words in it, some new lingo that more consistent, and it would still apply. If that's true 30 years, if that's true 30 years from now, honestly, folks, I know people always say this, they said it probably in the 70s, we are in trouble. And we have some momentum points right now. We have national momentum. Finally, we've got all the states buying into a common core set of standards and assessments, through the work of the National Governors Association, the CCSO. We finally come to the conclusion that being competent in math in Illinois is not that different than being competent in math in Ohio. It's not unique. So there's some things happening on the national scene. We've got this federal funding, Race to the Top, American Graduation Initiative, Access and Completion Fund to focus on more work, coherent work around college access and completion, funds for data systems that are out there. There's a growing public will and market demand, my big squeeze comment. So what we have right now really is market demand and supply suppression. That's what we got. We've got to figure out new ways to do business so we can respond to that market demand. It would be as where we are now is sort of like if Apple knew there was a tremendous desire for something like the iPhone, knew there would be this massive market, knew it was out there, and all had a big meeting and said, that would be hard. We'd have to change our production stuff. We'd have to learn new things. We'd have to do it differently. It'd have to look differently than an old product. Forget it. Let the market just hang. We can't afford to do that. In terms of the country. This is, as Rahm Emanuel said, a crisis we can't afford to waste. Final comment. One of my, I'm out of communication, so you always have to end with a quote. One of my favorite poets is Adrienne Rich. Ken mentioned I do read a little literature every now and then. And she has a wonderful set of poems called Love Poems, but there's a poem, I won't bother to do the whole poem for you, even though I do have background in theater. But the poem, one of the lines in the poem is, the maps they gave us were out of date by years. And I would suggest to you that the maps we've had for how higher education operates as a business, as an academic enterprise, as an outcomes-driven, the maps we've had and the nature of our relationships to our partners are out of date by decades. Out of date by decades. And these are the maps that have led us to unprecedented gaps between the have and have-nots that have led us to where we are today. There are new maps being developed. We hope at Lumina we're contributing to some of those new maps so that we can begin to think about how we work together so that this college completion agenda, this big goal, this moving America forward educationally, literally does become America's goal. As I noted at the beginning, higher education has been transformational in the past, GI Bill and other ways. Let's be transformational again. Let's be on the front lines. Let's be able to tell our children and grandchildren that we stepped up when the challenge and the crisis emerged, and because of that, we helped them have the kind of life that we want them to have and that we have had.